Welcome back to Fifth Street Sports. I'm Frank Perez with my co-host Oklahoma Brian and our special guest in studio, Ron. He's our NCAA. I would say grandmaster is what we call him. We're going to talk. We're going to finish up some of the other conferences. We went through the first five, the major conferences on the air there. Now we're going to go through the other seven conferences. Now there's a lot of great value and opportunities to make money in these conferences. In fact, this is probably where you want to focus on. The other ones are, they're like, who doesn't know that, on all those big ones. But I wanted to make sure to all of our guests, that were on the radio, that we did get our two selections out. Was there something that you wanted to bring out, Brian, to our, folks?
Well, I was just talking with Ron off air. I'm obsessed with this show called Last Chance U on Netflix. Have you seen it yet, Frank?
Last chance? No, but I've been wanting to. Is it good?
It's so good. It's very binge worthy. You can watch the entire season in one day if you're not careful.
Last chance you. I'll put that on my
Yeah.
list. One of our Fifth Street residents over here has gotten me off of our Ozark. He told me that the season 2 at Ozark was a real downer. I was looking forward to that. Now he put the thumbs down on it, so I'm going to go to Last Chance You.
It's cool. And one of the really neat things about the show, so the show is basically takes place at a junior college where a junior college football program, and the players have basically they're on their last strike. Like they've either been kicked out of school, they've failed a drug test, they haven't made their grades, or maybe they just weren't good enough to get a D1 scholarship. So this is kind of like this is redemption time for these guys. They're either gonna make it or they're gonna be out of football, and they film it at a different school. This past year, they filmed it just up the road from me, about 90 miles from here, at Independence Community College in Kansas. And what's really neat about this season, or interesting, is they changed the rules. And this team plays in a conference called the Jayhawk Conference, which is primarily composed of junior colleges in Kansas. And they used to have a rule in this conference where you could have a very small amount of imports. In other words, players from out of state. I think it was 20 in the past. They changed the rules so that it's now unlimited imports. And there's only like this particular team only has 4 Kansas players on it, but it has the potential with this rule change to create, this was already considered to be arguably the best conference for junior college football, and now they have the ability to recruit coast to coast. I mean, these teams are full of kids from Texas, California, and Florida. Yeah, I wonder if this will trickle over eventually into Kansas and Kansas State, those are programs that have historically relied on JUCO talent. Maybe
Wow.
that will give them a little bit of a shot in the arm.
Dang, that's a cool angle. That's interesting. So all right, so you got me on that. So I'll be binge watching that with you. So now, with Ron, okay, we just talked about it. We're going to go into the conferences. The next conference, if anybody knows what it is, it's the AAC. It sounds something like Tesla and Edison will be fighting over, but it's the AAC conference. So if you want, Ron, give us your whole take on this.
This is one of the most fascinating conferences that we have. I have news and notes that I could literally spend the whole show on
Okay.
with this particular conference. The most important things about this conference is coaching. Coaches do not stay in this conference. In the last couple of years, if you win, you get poached. UCF, Temple, University of South Florida, Memphis, Houston, SMU, all those coaches are gone to Power Five conferences, better jobs. If you lose, you get fired. So you really have to know, you really have to study the coaches in order to get some good angles on what's going to work and what's not going to work in the American Conference. What coaches are slow and steady, building the program one step at a time? Take, for instance, Tulane's coach. Third year there, he came from a much smaller conference even than the AAC, and he's building Tulane one step at a time. They got to 5 wins last year, arguably really got to 6 wins, but they disallowed a touchdown on the last play of the game. He's a slow and steady builder, so you know it's going to withstand the test of time. Whereas other coaches, guys like Tommy Tuberville, when he was in at Cincinnati, he wanted to build it up and win right away, build his resume, and it backfired on him. So you really have to look and see what kind of coaches are there. The other 2 things that I would point out real quickly is that you don't really want to bet favorites in this conference with all the coaching upheaval. If you look back at conference favorites, and in home game situations, there hasn't been one season where there have been more spread wins than losses from conference home favorites. Wow. That's a little tip there that I probably shouldn't be giving out, but there you have it. Be very careful about betting conference home favorites in this conference, and look at the running data. I chart running data. We talked a little bit in the other show about line of scrimmage and how that wears down teams. In this conference, when I historically chart running data, I look and see what are the long-term effects, not only by coach and by team, but by conference. And this is one of the conferences where running data seems to work.
Wow.
Fascinating.
Anything?
Well, that's a great point about the coaching turnover. One of the teams that I really fascinated by this year, I believe, had a unique thing happen to them this year. They didn't lose any of their assistant coaches, which is pretty much unheard of in this conference. And I'm speaking of North Texas. A lot of their coaches had a chance to go elsewhere this year, and they've all stuck around, anticipating a pretty big run in Denton, and they have a really exciting player. If you're not familiar with Mason Vine, this guy might be the best player that America's never heard of. He's not a big guy. I think he's probably 5'10", 5'11". I think he came into college at 160 pounds. He's in the weight room every day. I think he's getting close to 190 pounds now. We were talking about Kansas, a team that can never win. Here's a guy that would have died to go to Kansas if they had offered him a scholarship, and he was right under their nose in Oklahoma. But Kansas being Kansas, they can't figure things out. He gets away. Coach at North Texas, who has roots in Oklahoma, hears about him, and this guy ends up starting as a freshman and has 2 great years. He's going into his junior year this year and has a chance to really put up some really gaudy numbers in this conference.
Wow, so look out for that guy with North Texas. Were you on that too, Ron?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Mason Fine fan. I do like him. I do like the North Texas program. We're jumping ship a little bit because this is Conference USA with Mason Fine in North Texas. So yeah, I didn't want to kind of go in there, but
forgot where we were. Sorry, I thought we were going to say.
No, we were in the ACC. I tipped you off when I said Tesla and Edison. I didn't know if it was ACC or DCC.
Nobody knows this conference. That's one of the.
They change conferences so frequently. It's
former Big East.
Yes, there you go. Okay, all right. I know where we are now. All right.
So wrap up the AAC. So what do you think? What kind of angles or what can we look for here to get maybe a couple of advantage situations here, Ron? What do you think?
Well, inside the numbers, let's take a look at Cincinnati, for example. 3 wins against this level of competition. They won these 3 games by a total of 5 points. That's total.
Really?
8 losses at this level. Every loss was by double digits. Don't be fooled by their record. They're actually worse than what it seems.
Oh, my gosh.
So if you look inside the numbers, I don't see a reason to back Cincinnati until they've proven that they could do anything. Their coach, Luke Fickell, remember he was the interim coach the last time Ohio State had a problem, the Tattoo Gate problem. And he came in there and was an underwhelming 6-5. And then he stayed on, and we thought he learned a little bit under Urban Meyer, but the first year didn't go so well. And you can see they were really outplayed, and maybe they were lucky to have the record they had last year.
Wow, that's interesting. So they were actually worse than the record. Usually, somebody always uses that like this team has only lost by a run 38 times. Look out for them. So they should be 1-10, right?
That's what I would say. The cold hard stats, if you just looked at straight points, they had 3 close wins and no close losses.
Shoot. All right, let's fade Cincinnati, Brian. Put that on the A list there. We're going to fade Cincinnati.
Yeah, I'm for that. Boy, Cincinnati is a team that has one of the most dramatic splits on home versus away of any team in football historically. They've been quite a bit better at home than on the road.
Well, what do you think? Okay, Ron, let's go to the next one over here because we got 5 or 6 more to go. What's the next one you like?
The next one is the Mountain West, and if you're talking about the haves and the have-nots, we all know that the top 5 conferences get all the TV money, and the rest are stuck with $1 million here, $1 million there in this television age. Boise State is a team that historically has been incredible. Under Chris Peterson, routinely won 10, 11, 12 games. They would lose because they had poor field goal kicking. They've kind of stubbed their toe a little bit and taken a back seat and gone to maybe more like an 8, 9, 10 win season. But now they're sitting with a 4-year starting quarterback, about 18, 19 returning starters. The side of the division is not tough at all. The other side has Fresno and San Diego State. But Boise is that team that could be this year's UCF. UCF ran the table last year and played Auburn, beat a disinterested Auburn in a bowl game. Boise is hoping to be that team, and frankly, I think they'd be disappointed if they weren't 11-1 or 12-0.
Interesting. What's your take, Brian? So Boise's the gin rummy of this division here.
I take a backseat to Ron in the handicapping. I can't even pay attention to where we are. I'm loving this, by the way. This is great stuff. I got a thought while we're mentioning the Mountain West, because I've been saying this for years, and everybody that I discuss this with tends to agree, but it's never happened. The concept of Hawaii football is fascinating. Every hardcore gambler that you ever meet, or every sick gambler, right? We all have action on the Hawaii game. Last game of the night, right? Chance to lose even more money or win it back, whatever your mindset is. I've never understood why doesn't some network, like even a minor network, although I think ESPN could do it, make a spectacle of the Hawaii game, put it on national TV at, I guess it would be 1 a.m. East Coast time typically. But that should be, I think you could make that into an event, and kind of the same way that NBC features Notre Dame, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday. I really think somebody's missing out on a great opportunity to feature Hawaii football.
Tell me really, how many stations at 1 a.m. are trying to sell you like a knife that can cut through your boot or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
I mean, really, like, have you ever thought to yourself, boy, I got to get that knife. It can cut through a boot. Or look at this pen. It can the next time I'm in space or I'm 20 feet underwater, I can write my mom a letter. Why don't they have these Hawaii games on? I don't get it.
There's no worse feeling than having a huge bet on the Hawaii game, and maybe you figure out that it's going to rain or it's going to be windy, and you got a great total, and you have this incredible bet, and you get on the couch. You're like, oh man, it's been a hard day. I've been at Little League baseball or driving my daughter to soccer practice. I've missed a ton of games, but everyone's in bed. This is me time. I'm going to curl up on the couch and watch the Hawaii game, and it's not on TV.
And
that's
what a great spot. I mean, you got a great idea. What a great spot that during the Hawaii game you didn't run on the bottom. Like, why don't you join up at Betfair or at this sports book or that sports book during the bailout game here? At halftime.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be a great way to advertise your sports book, because that all the stuck and steaming or the guys closing parlays or something, they're all going to be watching that game.
I got to tell you,
I don't.
in Los Angeles, they actually did used to run the Hawaii games.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, they used to run them. The guy, I mean, I really love the announcing team. The guy in the flowered shirt, he was fantastic.
Yes.
And he called a good game. It was a lot of fun to watch, and you'd hear the wind blowing and everything was going. I watched those games late at night.
See, that's cool.
Yeah, and I would try to pronounce Hawaii the same way he would, with pronouncing every syllable. I still could never get it right.
Oh, that's cool. Well, there's your Mountain West. What do we got up next? So what do you?
Well, we could go to Conference USA.
Conference USA. Here
and that's
go.
where
Mason
North
Fine.
Texas is located. And it's interesting because North Texas may be the best team on that side of the ledger, but I'm actually picking against them to win the conference because they have a very tricky schedule. And I think schedule analysis is really a strong part of handicapping. And it just looks like they have more chances to be unseated by teams that either had 1 point revenge or 2 or 3 teams that are off bye weeks, and North Texas is not off a bye week. I think they could go toe-to-toe with the teams on their side of the ledger, but I see them just coming up a little short because of the schedule.
Oh, Brian's off here. Brian, are you there? Oh, okay. Brian's there. Hello.
Right.
I'm sure you caught all of that, right, Brian?
Yeah, I did. I heard everything. Hey, Ron, who are some other teams in Conference USA that you're looking to?
Well, sleeper pick out there would be Old Dominion. Nobody's talking about them. They've barely been in this, in the 130 team conversation, which as an aside, I hate when they add new teams because it's more work for me. I'd rather have them subtract teams than add teams, but that's a different story. Too many bowl games, too many teams. But Old Dominion is sitting on a side that's kind of loaded. Florida Atlantic with Lane Kiffin as coach. You've got Marshall. You got Middle Tennessee, who's a perennial bowl contender. And then you got Old Dominion, who's just kind of, who are they? And I see them as an under-radar team that could play with any of these guys. They return a lot of starting talent. Their coach has been there for a decade or so, and he's had winning records most of the years. He did not have a winning record last year. He lost his 4 years starting quarterback. But they played teams tight, and I think you're sitting on a team that maybe not necessarily their win total, but if you're looking at covering games, don't sleep on Old Dominion. Conference USA has maybe 6 or 7 teams that are better this year than last year. You can't say that about all the conferences. A lot of talent lost in the ACC, talent lost, or people, graduate transfers going from one school to another. I actually think Conference USA is a better league this year than they were a year ago.
Boy, that's interesting. So with that being said, Brian, I think, God, I wish you could have got some of this 4.5 on Old Dominion. Now it's up to 5 minus $1.80 or even 5.5 in some spots. On the
Who are they playing? Who are they playing? Oh, and the win total. Okay.
Win total, yeah. That's the sleeper there in the Conference USA.
I like it. They were a darling for a lot of handicappers last year. I know there was one guy in particular that bet them almost every week last year.
Yeah, that's sweet.
So Ron, I have a question for Ron. You mentioned Old Dominion, and that really rings a bell because I know that a couple years ago when they moved up to division, to the BCS division, they did what teams typically do when you move from the FCS, or what we historically think of as 1AA, to 1A. It's an incredible opportunity because of the number of scholarships you have increases dramatically in 1 year. Is there anybody making that move this year to the BCS that you know of, and what do you think about their chances to surprise?
The only team making the move is Liberty, an independent, because they applied. What I heard is they applied for admission to 2 different conferences, including Conference USA, and were denied. Liberty did not prep like Old Dominion did, and like some of the other teams that have recently joined, like Charlotte and so on, by playing 3 or 4 or 5 BCS type teams in the top 130. The problem with Liberty is they basically stayed at their own level. They only played one team at the higher level. That was Baylor. They were a 43 or 45 point underdog, and they beat Baylor in opening week, which, by the way, I greatly appreciated because Baylor was my #1 under total last year. But that aside, Liberty is playing, not only Liberty's playing New Mexico State twice this year. How's that for scheduling? Because New Mexico State dropped out of a conference, went to independent. They had trouble scheduling opponents. Liberty was looking for opponents. They're going to play a home-and-home series during the year.
Damn,
So Liberty's in over its head this year. So I don't see any kind of sneak attack for them. I don't even think they're listed for conference win totals or season win totals.
I remember that first.
That's fascinating. I've never heard of that. Has anybody? Do you ever remember a team playing the same opponent twice in the regular season?
Never. I know teams have played 3 times within like a 15-game stretch if they had bowl teams and they scheduled them the next week. I think North Texas is one of them. North Texas played Army
yes.
in one year. Then they played them again in the bowl, and then they played them again the first or second week in the next year.
I remember that. Yes.
So chart this, Brian. You can write this down. So when your grandkids ask you for trivia, you can say in 2018, when they say, "Has any team ever played each other twice in the regular season?" Say, "I was there. It was Liberty
and New Mexico State."
New Mexico.
What would you make the over/under on attendance of either one of those games?
Yeah, really.
So
I don't know. Liberty might have a following, but some of these. Yeah. This is a good point when we talk about the next conference. Remind me to talk about attendance.
Okay, so what is that? Okay, well, with that being said, what is the next conference?
Well, the next conference is the MAC.
There it is.
And everybody loves the MAC. It's a really big gambling conference, but you want a tidbit, not even talking about teams, and I'm sure you know this. Home attendance is pitiful in November. It could be weather, it could be apathy, it could be the steel seats that you have to sit on, whatever the case may be. But you're getting 6,000-7,000 for a stadium. And these home teams, if you've got a home team that's 3-6 and they're playing at home in November, they're going to go 3-7. And if they're favored, they're going to eat up some money. It's really, really been a situation where home apathy in November seems to be my touch point for the MAC. Any thoughts on that?
I have a thought on the MAC, kind of somewhat related to 2 thoughts, actually. I know Frank knows where he thinks I know where I'm going to go on this first one, because Frank likes my MAC weather attack. That's one of my specialties is weather in the MAC.
It sounds like something you get at McDonald's, but believe me, it's great stuff.
But I'll say this about betting the MAC. If I don't have the data in front of me, but if you were to look at the biggest money line upsets in the history of college football over the last 20 years, I'll bet you half of them are MAC games. 28-point dogs that went outright, 24-point dogs that went outright. Oh, yeah. It's amazing how money line dogs do in the MAC. It's just it's one of the really crazy things in all of handicapping, and I love those situations. To get a 17-point dog and that actually has a chance to win outright in the money line, and you see them every year in the MAC. Mm-hmm. It's
so
really
how
fascinating.
Would you play those? Would you play those some like half spread, half money line, or just the values in the money line?
Well, I'll say the first thing I wouldn't do is lay a lot of chalk on the money line in the MAC. Like you're going to go broke quick trying to lay 500 on MAC favorites. That's the worst thing you can do. But me, I am beyond a contrarian. I'm also the world's greatest plagiarizer. So if I see a lot of sharp people agreeing on something on Monday and Tuesday, and I think I can get a good number on the money line, I'm gonna take a poke at it.
Nice. Mm-hmm. So what do you think? So where's the value? Ohio U?
Well, Ohio U is your tease team in the MAC every year. They have the easy, soft schedule. They play in a division where they're supposed to win. You're talking about big underdogs. Akron had no business being in the same stadium if you look at their seasonal performance versus Ohio U, yet they beat Ohio. I don't remember where that particular game was, but that they were clearly a double-digit dog, 13, 14, 15 points. And then at 6-6, they claim the MAC title, and Ohio U does not claim, once again, a chance to get to the title game. And here we are again with Ohio U, and I think somebody unseats them again. I'm waiting for Miami of Ohio to actually turn the corner and be more than a 5-7 team, but I think Miami of Ohio is the next team that say, okay, Ohio U's the favorite, who can beat them? And I think it's Miami.
Wow. Well, there it is. We got some good info on moneyline dogs in this conference. What's the next conference you got up for us?
Well, the only other conference other than the independents I have is the SUNBELT. And to be honest, I went right to work on the NFL before going to the SUNBELT. With all apologies to the SUNBELT, they're generally perceived as three strong teams in the SUNBELT, and that would be Arkansas State, whose offense can play with anyone. And they got an NFL draftee coming in, maybe a first or second day draft choice at quarterback at Arkansas State, and a team loaded. They could be a serious 10-win type team. Appalachian State is extremely well coached, and Troy, those of you who have followed me or who know where I make some bold predictions, last year at this time, I believe I said Troy's coach Neil Brown in 2019, so we haven't hit 2019 yet, would be North Carolina's head coach, and I'm not going to back off on that. I think Neil Brown of Troy is going to a Power 5 conference, and I think he's going to coach. I have no info on this whatsoever, but I think North Carolina would be an incredible landing place for him. Those three teams, Troy, Arkansas State, Appalachian State, are the three teams that win-wise are the best three in the conference, but I haven't done a lot of work on this conference.
There you go, the SUNBELT. Brian, did you know the disparity in cash that the SUNBELT is from the major conferences? He was telling me.
Oh yeah, but it's huge.
Television rights, 600,000 to 43 million.
Oh.
How do you like that?
SUNBELT to the SEC.
SUNBELT to the SEC, just 600,000 to 43 million. That's it. It's not much.
Wow. Can we pick Ron's brain on the NFL briefly? I'd really like to hear what he has to say about the NFL. Well, I guess the first question I'm going to ask you is the New England Patriots. It appears to be a division that they can't lose, right? I mean, they're anywhere from 10. I see them as high as 12-1 at books to win the division. Their season win totals somewhere between 11 and 11.5. And people are acting like it's free money. I'm a bit of I'm always the contrarian. I'm always trying to figure out, well, maybe how could it not work? I think this is a team that implodes at some point, and it could be this year. Curious what your take on the AFC East of the Patriots.
Well, we are aligned once again. I've been calling for implosion. This will be the second year I'm calling for implosion because there's something about how Bill Belichick prepares. There's something about Tom Brady's ageless wonder and so on. And there's also something about how bad their three opponents are. But this year, instead of putting Buffalo, Miami, and the Jets in a hat, I think you can put Buffalo out of the hat and put them in fourth, which gives you the Jets and Miami, and so there's more of a chance that one of them can actually rise up. Miami's had a good history against New England, especially at home. The Jets are going to play dynamite defense, so if they stop turning the ball over and find a wide receiver with a pulse, maybe they can do something. There's certainly the fact that New England's been exposed defensively. They lose their defensive coordinator. They have some injuries to their defensive line. The one area that I would caution about betting against them is that Bill Belichick understands the importance of the third facet of play: offense, defense, special teams. Nobody scours the nation personally going to workouts before the NFL draft like Bill Belichick, and he's looking for special teams help. And every year, this is a top 5 special teams unit. The LA Chargers would have won 7 divisional titles if they cared even a lick about special teams. But every year, they have punts blocked, they have field goals missed, they have coverage issues, they give up long scores. Won't ever happen with Bill Belichick. They don't fumble punts. They have left-footed directional kickers. That's the area that separates them from the rest. And if not for that area, I'd be completely in your thinking.
I like your thinking too, Brian. 'Cause I was just thinking about Brady, and when you were telling me about about him the other day, I actually was going through my house and I was actually looking at a Tom Brady rookie card, and if you look at it, it's taken outdoors, and behind him is a payphone. And then if you look to his right, there's a car, and there's an 8-track player in the car. I mean, come on already. How old is this guy you said? He's 41, 42?
41.
41.
41. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, baby. Let's go. So we're going to fade the Patriots. Here on Fifth Street Sports, we're fading the Patriots. All the way
And if it
through,
doesn't
right?
work, hey, listen, here's the great thing. If it doesn't work, guess what our bet is next year?
Yeah, there's
Fade the
always
Patriots.
next year. It's like the Cleveland Brown overs. You keep waiting.
So we're going to martingale
Yes.
fade. Now, if we would have been martingaling fading the Patriots, we wouldn't have liked it the last decade and
No,
a half.
you're right.
Right? We would be like we'd be like those guys that are, like that bet NFL football and they're 38 still living with their parents, right?
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
fading the Patriots. Oh, well, there we go. So, now Ron's thing is coming up. Ron at Ace Ron A Sports at Ron A Sports.
Yeah,
right?
Ron.
On-
Yeah,
on
Ron at
Twitter.
One Sport.
Get a hold of Ron. You really want to interact with Ron here. All his stuff, top to bottom, college football, NFL football, all the way through the season. Very valuable Twitter handle you just got a hold of here on Fifth Street Sports. Brian, got another NFL question here. I was interested.
Yeah, I'd like to pick your brain on NFL.
I'm a copycatter, but I do have a few original ideas. I'm fading the Seahawks pretty hard this year. I kind of think Russell Wilson has peaked athletically, and I don't think there's a lot of support around him.
Okay.
Curious what you think about the Seahawks.
Well, we're losing line value right now on the over-unders, but and game by game, I think that's a good point. The Seahawks went through a lot of coaching changes, so that's one thing. They're completely new secondary. That's the other thing. They've mishandled the draft for years. They've relied on coaching and teaching. They teach a lot of position changes. I don't know any other coaching staff that drafts a guy at one position and ends up using him at another position more than Seattle. And that's fine when you don't have roster turnover. But like you said about fading them, they have roster turnover and coaching turnover this year. And if they're going to be trying to train people on new positions, it's not going to work as well.
Great point.
Yeah, their leading runner last year, not counting Russell Wilson, 240 yards.
Wow.
Huh. Wow,
Yeah.
that's staggering.
That's not good.
Huh.
That was
No,
one,
no,
was
that's
one
not
game
good.
for Barry or OJ, right? That was one game for these guys. Come on, brother.
How do you? What's your take on Gruden and the Raiders? That seems to be one of the hottest questions in Vegas these days. Everybody's got an opinion. What's
Yeah.
yours?
Thanks for asking me that question because I have no good answer. It's one of those teams. It's kind of like UCLA in a way. I got to see their on-field performance. I liked their draft and I hated their draft. All in the same sentence. They drafted guys that could be out of the league in 60 seconds because they'll be in jail or they'll be hurt or they're continually hurt. And these same guys could be all pros because they have hidden talent and value. I think they're sneakily good, and I think they'll get more out of their quarterback position than they have in the past. I think they're going to be up and down with Gruden. They're a primetime darling, and these teams that have to go up and down and they play with a six-day break and then a 10-day break and then a 2-week break and so on, it really throws them off. Even the up-and-coming teams like Jacksonville and the Rams, which were great bets last year, now they have to deal with primetime games. Jacksonville last year played all Sunday games practically. The Raiders, they're just a primetime type darling, and with Gruden there, they made sure to give them a couple of Monday night games and so on. I think you're just going to see them all over the place, and when all is said and done, I'm going to be as curious as the next person as to how it shakes out, but I do think they're talented.
Do they get one of the? Are they playing in Mexico again this year?
They're playing in Are they playing in Mexico?
are.
I believe they
are.
Yeah,
They
I'm not sure of
Okay.
that. They're playing somewhere far away.
They are.
I know they've played in Mexico the last 2 years, I believe.
They're a big draw.
They're a huge draw
Yeah.
with the Hispanic community down there.
Yeah. But and I can't wait. We'll save the Mexico analysis, but that's one of my favorite games. The handicap on the calendar
Altitude?
is the Mexico.
You like altitude?
Altitude.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
The okay, so while we're on the Raiders, have you guys seen Marshawn Lynch during the preseason? He looks like a different running back. Looks like he's a lot slimmed down, and
Yeah.
to me, he looks a lot faster than I remember him, which is unheard of for an older back. It's not like really pretty much
Yeah.
impossible.
You know,
Never see older backs
but
looking better.
I'm with Ron. This team could go 12-4, or they can go 4-12. It's going to be scary, but I think with Gruden they got a real good chance. They got a real good chance to do well.
Comparing Marshawn Lynch and Frank Gore, for example, two guys that you'd think would be on the downside of their career, the key stat for me, and always will be for running backs, is yards per carry. Frank Gore's last 3 years, 3.7, 3.8, 3.9. The league average is 4.1. So while he's a good pass catcher, he's a good blocker and so on, he doesn't move the pile. Marshawn Lynch last year, with a year out of football the year before, was in the mid-4s. I mean, Marshawn Lynch can still run the ball. Marshawn Lynch can still be a factor this year.
And I don't even know how to ask this question without laughing, but what do you think of Adrian Peterson in the Redskins? Is that one of the biggest reaches you've seen? Is that just a ploy to sell tickets, or do you think there's actually a football argument for signing him?
I think there's a football argument for him doing well in 2 out of 16 games, but if he had to play 8 consecutive games, if you can play player props, start fading his number, because I don't see any durability there. I mean, the guy basically hasn't strung 3 straight games together in 5 years, 6 years, due to injuries, holdouts, suspensions, and so on. What are you going to get from him? But you could get a 112-yard, 20 carry, 112-yard game from him when he's fresh.
Yeah. And then the next week, get ready to bet the under props.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Hey, now, in your opinion, Brian, do you think that Adrian Peterson is a Hall of Fame candidate?
I would say yes, because of the position. I think we have to evaluate the running back position differently. I mean, the fact is your shelf life is so limited as a running back. I think like 7 or 8 years of a resume in the NFL is a suitable resume to evaluate someone for the Hall of Fame. So, yeah, absolutely.
What about you?
I agree 110% with that. I mean, they put in Terrell Davis basically on like 5 years of work, which I kind of questioned, and Peterson's had much more of that kind of outcome and output, and put them in the playoffs and so on. He's a Hall of Famer in my eyes.
I can't believe you mentioned Terrell Davis. I just read his whole story. I go, the guy was really good, but really Hall of Fame. That's, supposed to be the elite place.
Yeah, there seems
and
to be
he was a fourth round draft pick, I think.
Yeah. There seems to be a difference between how people define really, really, really good and getting into the Hall of Fame. And some really, really good players shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, but they're still really, really good.
Yeah. Baseball's got the biggest thing. I think Brian was mentioning one time we're going to have with Nolan and everybody, we're going to have an entire show on the Hall of Shame, like who should not be in there.
Well, no, that was a guest we had. My thing I've been wanting to do is I want to start the steroids Hall of Fame for guys that they're not letting into the Hall of Fame because of steroids. I want to buy like a truck stop in the middle of Iowa or Arizona or something, and I want to have the official steroid Hall of Fame. And we will induct people every year, whether they want it or not. We'll have an induction ceremony. I'll get mustard-colored jackets for everyone. We'll make an event every year.
But one of the greatest steroid seasons, like if you had like a steroid MVP season, had to be from that Brady Anderson from the Orioles, right?
Oh my goodness!
Oh, he gets in. He's
like 50
first ballot. Yeah.
So that's a steroid season, right? I mean, that's a steroid.
He's invited. When we build it, he will come, I hope.
Anyways, well, we're getting ready to wrap this up. Brian,
it's been a lot of fun.
Thanks a lot for everything. We're going to get ready to get out of here. Remember, at Ron A Sports is his Twitter handle at there. Thank you very much for being on the show, Ron. It's been a good time.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
You're welcome. And Andrew, I think we're going to be signing off, brother. Okay, here we go. Brian, thank you. Everybody have a nice day from 5th Street Sports.